The impeachment hearings resumed yesterday, this time in the House Judiciary Committee under the careful watch of Chairman Jerry Nadler.
May I make a parliamentary inquiry before you?
The gentleman is not in order for parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Chairman, before I yield back, I have a motion.
The gentleman was recognized for the purpose of an opening statement, not for the purpose of making a motion.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
The clerk will call the roll.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
You're not recognized for parliamentary inquiry at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman will suspend. That is not a proper parliamentary inquiry.
It is a proper.
It is not a proper parliamentary. The gentleman will suspend. That is not a proper parliamentary inquiry.
This time around, there were no actual witnesses to testify again. Not even anybody who heard from their best friend's sister's brother's boyfriend's girlfriend that some guy who knew a kid that was dating a girl who worked at 31 Flavors heard President Trump say something that would qualify for impeachment. Instead, there were a couple of college professors brought before the committee to tell the American people why they believe President Trump should be impeached, including Stanford law professor Pamela Karlan.
And Article 2 does not give him the power to do anything he wants. And I'll just give you one example that shows you the difference between him and a king, which is the Constitution says there can be no titles of nobility. So while the president can name his son Baron, he can't make him a baron.
Thank you. The founding.
Well, that settles it. Let's impeach this man immediately. Congressman Matt Gaetz then had to be the adult in the room.
When you invoke the president's son's name here, when you try to make a little joke out of referencing Baron Trump, that does not lend credibility to your argument. It makes you look mean. It makes you look like you're attacking someone's family, the minor child of the President of the United States. So let's see if we can get into the facts. To all of the witnesses, if you have personal knowledge of a single material fact in the Schiff report, please raise your hand. And let the record reflect no personal knowledge of a single fact. And you know what? That continues on the tradition that we saw from Adam Schiff, where Ambassador Taylor could not identify an impeachable offense. Mr. Kent never met with the president. Fiona Hill never heard the president reference anything regarding military aid. Mr. Hale was unaware of any nefarious activity with aid. Colonel Vindman even rejected the new Democrat talking point that bribery was invoked here. Ambassador Volker denied that there was a quid pro quo, and Mr. Morrison said there was nothing wrong on the call. The only direct evidence came from Gordon Sondland, who spoke to the President of the United States, and the President said, "I want nothing. No quid pro quo."
This cat lady, the Democrat star witness, is so crazy that she's afraid to walk on the same side of the street as Trump Tower.
Yeah, so I was struck. I came in from the airport yesterday, and I got off the bus from Dulles down at L'Enfant Plaza, and I walked up to the hotel. And as I was walking past what used to be the old post office building and is now the Trump Hotel, which I had to cross the street, of course.
Are you staying there?
God, no. Never.
That's the kind of impartial and unbiased professor that is going to make a clear and concise judgment about whether or not the president did anything worthy of impeachment. First Lady Melania Trump then took to Twitter to issue a rare statement denouncing the cat lady, telling her to keep her son Barron out of it. Congressman Al Green, who I don't think is part of the impeachment hearings because not even his own colleagues want him to be on any of the committees, decided to go to the empty floor of the House and complain about, just have a listen.
Mr. Speaker, I rise because I love my country, but I also rise today with heartfelt regrets. It hurts my heart, Mr. Speaker, to see the Judiciary Committee hearing experts on the topic of impeachment, one of the seminal issues of this Congress. Hearing experts, Mr. Speaker, and not one person of color among the experts. What subliminal message are we sending to the world when we have experts but not one person of color? Are we saying that there are no people of color who are experts on this topic of impeachment? What is the message that we're sending?
Well, we know what message you're sending, sir. It's 100% stupidity. The hearing was so boring and uneventful that ABC News decided to cut back to their regularly scheduled programming before they were even halfway done.
We are going to return to our regular programming right now. Live coverage of the hearing is going to continue with Tom Yamas on ABC News Live. That's our 24/7 streaming channel. And of course, David Muir will have a full wrap-up tonight.
Oh, you can watch the live stream on their website. I hope it can handle the bandwidth. Thankfully, Congressman Jim Jordan was there to give the American people a summary of the circus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before Speaker Pelosi announced the impeachment inquiry 10 weeks ago on September 24th, before the call between President Trump and President Zelensky on July 25th, before the Mueller hearing in front of this committee on July 24th, before all that, 16 of them had already voted to move forward on impeachment. 16 Democrats on the Judiciary Committee had already voted to move forward on impeachment, yet today we're talking about whether the positions they've already taken are constitutional. Seems a little backward to me. Professor Turley, you've been great today, but I think you were wrong on one thing. You said this is a fast impeachment. I would argue it's not a fast impeachment, it's a predetermined impeachment. Predetermined impeachment done in the most unfair partisan fashion we have ever seen. No subpoena power for Republicans. Depositions done in secret, in the bunker, in the basement of the Capitol. 17 people come in for those depositions. No one can be in there except a handful of folks that Adam Schiff allowed in those depositions. Chairman Schiff prevented witnesses from answering Republican questions. Every Democrat question got answered. Not every Republican question. Democrats denied Republicans the witnesses we wanted in the open hearings that took place 3 weeks ago. And of course, Democrats promised us the whistleblower would testify and then change their mind. And they changed their mind, why? Because the whole world discovered that Adam Schiff's staff had talked to the whistleblower, coordinated with the whistleblower with no firsthand knowledge, bias against the president, who worked with Joe Biden, whose lawyer in January of 17 said the impeachment process starts then. That's the unfair process we've been through. And the reason it's been unfair, let me just cut to the chase. The reason it's been unfair is because the facts aren't on their side. The facts are on the president's side. 4 key facts: will not change, have not changed, will never change. We have the transcript. There was no quid pro quo in the transcript. The 2 guys on the call, President Trump and President Zelensky, both said no pressure, no pushing, no quid pro quo. The Ukrainians, third, didn't know that the aid was held up at the time of the phone call. And fourth, and most important, the Ukrainians never started, never promised to start, and never announced an investigation in the time that the aid was paused. Never once. This is scary. The Democrats have never accepted the will of the American people. The facts are the facts. They are on the president's side. With that, I yield back.
Things got even worse when George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley testified that he didn't even vote for President Trump, but thinks that there's no reason to impeach him.
You need to stick the landing on the quid pro quo. You need to get the evidence to support it. It might be out there, I don't know, but it's not in this record. I agree with my colleagues. We've all read the record, and I just come to a different conclusion. I don't see proof of a quid pro quo, no matter what my presumptions, assumptions, or bias might be.
Oh, by the way, I thought this was photoshopped when I first saw it, but it turns out to be real. Some of the pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong printed out pictures of President Trump, the one with his head on Rocky Balboa's body that he tweeted out that triggered the liberal media, and they're holding it up at their demonstrations. It turns out people around the world are fans of Trump memes, and speaking of which, I've just re-released my Trump Claus shirt just in time for Christmas. And unless your relatives look closely, they may just think that it's an ordinary picture of Santa Claus, but of course it is President Trump. They're available in a nice sweatshirt and a t-shirt, but be sure to get your orders in now at markdice.com so you can get them in time for Christmas, because the cutoff day is next Thursday to make sure that they'll ship out in time. Also, for this week only, I've re-released the Trump Silver Silhouette shirt and the Trump 2020 Gold Foil shirt, which come in a nice, shiny, reflective paint. The pictures on the storefronts don't do them any justice. This is what they'll look like when you get them in person. So head on over to markdice.com or click the link in the description below, get your orders in now, and check them out!